This is probably going to be annoying because I'm having to video on my phone instead of the way that I usually video, but it's fine. Okay, describe the action potentials in cardiac in the SA node. Okay. Alright, so your cardiac, that's so ugly. For your cardiac myocytes, your cardiac cells, myocytes, whatever you want to call them, the resting membrane potential is -90. And that's because you have special potassium channels that open during repolarization, so it brings it almost all the way down to the Nernst potential. And then it goes straight into an action potential, and that is because you have gap junctions in between every cell. So you go straight into a gap into an action potential, right? You reach threshold very fast. You still have your voltage-gated sodium channels open. But you don't have like a graded potential, like where it almost gets there and then gets there, because you have the gap junctions in between the shells, so you just get there right away. Then you have your potassium fast channel that opens here, and then so that's why you go down a little bit. But then you have voltage-gated calcium channels, LNT type, that open, and then you also have like potassium. It's like rapid, fast, slow, and like super slow basically. So you have like 3 different channels that are going to open. So you have calcium coming in, but you have potassium leaving, so that causes this like plateau. The plateau, when all the calcium inside, that's what allows your contractions. Your contractions actually happening during here because you need that calcium to come in order to contract. But eventually you don't have any more calcium really, and so the potassium just overpowers, and you've got that. For your autorhythmic cells, that's your SA node, your AV node, and your Purkinje fibers. That's gonna have funny channels that open at -60, and those are gonna go like this, and they always open at -60. You're gonna have your voltage-gated calcium channels that open and allow calcium to come in, whereas for your funny channels, it's your sodium. Scientists were probably like, oh, it's sodium, that's funny, because that's different than what it usually is. These are also called your HCN channels, or your like cyclic nucleotide ones. It's like your hyperpolarizing cyclonucleotide channels, and so your sympathetic system can increase the amount that are open, so then you have like faster, you have more, or you can break down camp, which will then, I think that will still video, yeah. So then you can break down camp so that less of them are open, so then that will slow it down instead. So that's your funny channels. Explain the ECG tracings and how it works. So you have your cute little heart. You have a SA node up here. Your SA usually makes your heart rate go about 60 to 80 beats per minute without the influence of your sympathetic nervous system. And so your atrium depolarizing, that's going to be your P wave. So it's your P wave. And then you're going to have basically along, let me draw the septum a little bit better. But essentially along the septum, the bundle branches on your left side, so we'll make it a little bit better. So the bundle branches on this side are faster, so they're going to depolarize faster than these ones. So you kind of have a vectors going like this, and it's a negative tail going towards a negative lead. So that's why you get this Q wave that goes down. And then eventually they're all going to be negative, and you're shooting down this way. And so that's why you have a giant R. And then you've got your Purkinje fibers, which are going to depolarize it this way. But your left, like your left ventricle pocket kind of is thicker. And so that's what's going to depolarize the last. And so you've got it going away from the positive lead, so that's why you go down for the S. Then all of this gets erased, and you're going to want to repolarize, meaning you're going to make it inside of the cell more negative instead of more positive. And so you kind of have an overall vector going straight this way, and it's got a positive tail, and it's going towards a negative lead, so that's why you still have it go up like this, and that's going to be your T wave. Your T wave will be upside down if you have hypoxia. And And then there's another condition where you have, is that one of them? Is it just STEMI and NSTEMI I need to go over? Yeah, so STEMI and NSTEMI. So for your STEMI, basically, if you had up here, you had like your coronary arteries and they were feeding this, right? If you had some kind of blockage right there, it's right there that's being impacted, okay? So basically, you're gonna have channels over here, or your cells over here that remain depolarized, meaning it's more positive inside the cell and it's negative outside the cell. And that is because you have, you don't have oxygen, meaning that your sodium-potassium pump isn't going to work as much. So that's going to create less of a gradient, so you're going to kind of stay in the depolarized state. So now you have vectors kind of going in that direction with a negative tail. So what that's going to do is, if this was your normal EKG, right, with your T wave, what happens is this vector is going towards a positive lead. This is NSTEMI, by the way. So this vector is kind of going towards a positive lead, and so you're going to have it go up like this, right? And then, so that's called your current of injury. So it's basically just kind of like background noise that you, like a signal that you're getting, background noise. But then your P wave is going to be normal, your Q and your R is going to be normal, but then your S is where everything's going to be depolarized. So everything's going to look like that cell. So you're going to come back to here for your S, right? But then your T wave still needs to be brought back up to there. So that's your S and that's your T. So this is your ST depression, aka you're not an ST elevation myocardial infarction. So that's happening with that one. For STEMI, what's happening is you've got what's called a transmural blockade. So that means that all of the cells inside here, all of the cells, they're negative outside the cell. No, yeah, all of the cells are negative outside. Whereas the cells around here are more positive, right? And so essentially it's creating vectors kind of going like this, right? But it's really going to be going kind of overall. I know it doesn't make sense. Physics is awful, but basically it's going like that with a negative tail towards a negative lead, so it's going to go down. So you have a normal P wave, QRS, and then your T, but then what happens is this blockade causes your usual baseline to go down, right? So then you'll have your P wave, your Q, and you're going to have your R up here, and then your S, right? But your S usually would stop right there, but then it's going to kind of go like this, and then you're going to have your T. So that's your ST. So see how the S is elevated? So that's your ST elevation myocardial infarction. This one is bad news. It's basically a heart attack. This one's less bad, but it could progress into that. And the reason why you get that is if you have, again, your coronary arteries not giving enough blood supply to here. So then you don't have oxygen, which means that you don't have your ATP, which means that your sodium-potassium pump is not working, which will then cause all these cells to remain depolarized. But this is the transmural one. Transmural, trans means across and mural means wall, so it's like a wall across your heart that's damaged. These cells are usually dead, whereas hypoxia will just cause this wave to be upside down, right? It's kind of dead cells, but it's just more likely, it's more so causing it to be upside down. So that's it for the first video. Stay tuned for more.